runs through it, we do it. Even if water's not running through it at this particular moment. Mike Scott Plumbing.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 24 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this morning. On the phone is Mark E. Becker, and I apologize in advance to Mark and to everybody, really. We went along with Charlotte Reed and Dr. Fleck. they just had a hard time saying goodbye to them. But they're a fun interview as always. Mark Becker is an attorney, a mediator, and a best-selling author. And it says here 2 of his books are, one is called At Risk of Winning. It's a novel. The other one is No Corner to Hide, Confronting the Evils of Domestic Terrorism. Interesting. It sounds like his brain is working all over the place. But it also says here that he wants to speak about why more and more people are not using the legal system and going outside of the law to resolve their issues. Not so sure what that means. I went through a divorce, and it's not a pleasant memory for me. It was years and years ago. Mm-hmm. How many years ago was that? That was like...
Oh, gosh, that was 24 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. But it's still... I still remember it, obviously, and I did have a mediator during that, and the mediator served a great purpose for me, so I'm glad of that. And so Mark is on the air to talk to us about why some people sometimes go outside of the law to resolve an issue. Maybe it's a money issue. I don't know. Mark Becker. Good morning, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you?
I'm in Tallahassee.
Oh, okay. Are you a legislator? Are you part of that process?
No, I'm just one of those lowly mediators who settles everybody else's disputes for a living.
Oh man, how do you know that? Having gone through it in a divorce, it's amazing that you can be impartial. It's amazing that you don't side one way or the other. I was so sure that the guy was going to, not that there was any animosity between me and my ex-wife, but I thought, okay, he's a guy, I'm a guy, and he's going to think this guy's got to be the problem. But he really didn't. He didn't look at me that way, so I was always impressed by that.
I'm the most non-judgmental attorney in the world.
Well, you have to be, right? Until you become a judge, then you have to be judgmental, right?
That's right. That's the other end of the scale.
So talk a little bit about the topic that I have, and unless that's not where you wanted to go with this. When you say going outside of the legal system, does that mean like going to Staples and buying a do-it-yourself package of paperwork?
No, I'm more or less referring to that 5 to 10% of people that can't reach an agreement about anything. And there's some horrible examples of that, one of which I'll talk to you in partial detail today.
You have a solution for that?
About the 10%?
Yeah, about the people who can't come to an agreement. Because if you do, I was thinking maybe we should have you talk to Congress. They're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mediate political disputes also, so it's not an impossible situation, and my attitude toward any dispute of any kind is that it can be resolved through mediation. Okay. I've never met a dispute I couldn't settle.
Wow. Well, I've always
done over 5,000 of them.
And typically, what are they? I mean, out of the 5,000, what's the largest percentage of cases? Are they?
Mainly family law cases, divorce.
Oh, okay.
Disputes about children, that sort of thing.
Well, see, a good leader should be a good mediator, I think. A good leader should be able to say to the body that he's leading, look, we're not coming to a decision here. We need to. Simple as that, right?
Well, that's what I write about in my political thrillers.
Okay.
The main character is named Max Masterson, and he is at risk of winning the presidency in the first book. And in the second book, it deals with domestic terrorism after he's elected president. And he's not a politician. He's never held public office. He never makes any speeches. He's not a member of any political party. So he doesn't owe anybody any favors, and he approaches it like a mediator.
Okay. Part of my notes indicate an ex-fashion model, Samira Frash. Is this a true story that she was found dead at the?
It's an absolutely true story, and you're probably wondering how a mediator could get involved in the world's most contested divorce case. But I was for 3 years. I represented Dr. Adam Frosch in his second divorce case, and the case you're referring to, you can explain the facts to your audience, but Samara Frosch was found at the bottom of the family pool on February 22nd. And Dr. Frosch was involved in a divorce with her, so that's his third divorce. And the circumstances are very suspicious, but I'm cautioning everybody to withhold judgment until the state attorney looks at it and makes a decision about whether there was foul play.
And that just happened, right? That was a few weeks ago?
About a week and a half ago, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, and you're the mediator in that case?
No, I represented Dr. Frosch in his second divorce.
Oh, okay.
And it was the most contested case I've ever dealt with. We went through 6 judges during the time that I represented him. We went through the appellate court, and this is a prime example of people who are unable to reach an agreement. We went to mediation. Actually, he went by himself once, and I represented him as his attorney at 2 occasions, and they weren't able to resolve any issues at all. And Dr. Frosch, before I represented him, decided he was going to represent himself at trial, and he did a terrible job being judge. Then we went through the appellate court system, and we had several hearings, actually many hearings. It seemed like it was once a month for 3 years straight. So we had the most contested divorce that any of the judges have ever seen.
Okay.
And there are similarities in the third divorce.
So will you be part of this case?
No, I withdrew as his attorney several years ago for reasons I can't disclose to you, because there are certain things that lawyers cannot say about their clients, confidences and secrets. So I'm not at liberty to tell you why, but you can discern from the volatile nature of the case that there were some problems.
Yeah.
Was he divorced from his third wife before she was found dead? Was it final?
No, they were going through a divorce, and the house where she was found drowned in the pool was the house I obtained for him in his second divorce, and we went through about a year of litigation trying to get that house back from wife number 2. And then divorce number 3 started, and they went through months of trying to reconcile and then going to court, and there were dueling domestic violence injunctions in both cases. And when I say dueling, the wife would file a domestic violence petition, and then the husband would file a domestic violence petition, and people went to jail temporarily, and there were restraining orders and injunctions, all sorts of things.
Let me ask you something, Mark. We recently had a case that finished here in Marion County, and it was a young man who was being tried for, and I'm saying murder, but maybe they had something else, manslaughter, I don't know, but his was it a little cousin, 14-month-old cousin or something like that, that was dead, and they were blaming him, and anyway, he was acquitted. Now, we the general public only know what the news prints or what the news reporters read or that kind of thing. That's all we know. We don't hear everything a jury hears. And so it's similar to like the O.J. Simpson case, or the girl who was down in Orlando tried for the killing her baby. What was her name again? The famous case?
Oh, gosh. Susan Anthony. Anthony, somebody Anthony.
Casey Anthony.
Casey,
Casey Anthony,
thank you.
that's it.
What I'm getting at is that when we're exposed to stories through the news, we the public, and then the jury comes to a different conclusion than the public has, I wonder what are your feelings about that? I mean, it might even apply to the Adam Frosch case. We'll hear about it in the news, come to a conclusion, but yet a jury might hear something totally different simply because we don't hear everything, right?
Well, this case, after they found her drowned in the pool, they arrested Dr. Frosch at another residence with his 2 children, and the facts of the case were that he came by at 8:30 in the morning and picked up the kids and took them to Panama City Beach, where he owns another home, and 2.5 hours later, the pool maintenance man found her dead at the bottom of the pool. So everybody assumes immediately he did it, and the husband is always the main suspect until somebody tells you otherwise. And that's what the police are obviously investigating, and that's what the state attorney is considering. But there are a whole lot of other possibilities. She could have tripped and hit her head and drowned. She could have been on some drugs, and the toxicology tests are not back yet. She could have drowned, passed out and drowned. She could have been killed by her husband, or she could have been killed by somebody else.
Wow.
It could just be a horrible accident.
Okay, but that case, just to try to get back to the topic, that case would probably never be settled out of court, right? I mean, how would you settle that kind of a case out of court?
No, you can't settle criminal cases that involve somebody's life or liberty. I've been trained to mediate criminal cases, but they're few and far between.
Does he still have the children, or have they been taken away from him until this case is resolved?
No, the state took the children, and now they're with a relative.
Okay.
In another state.
Let me reintroduce you, Mark, for those just tuning in, and we do have the phone lit up here, so let me take a couple of those calls. If you're okay with taking calls, are you okay with that?
Sure. There's some things I can't disclose because of my representation of Dr. Frosch, but I'd be happy to answer what I can.
Okay. Mark E. Becker is our guest. He's an attorney. He's a certified mediator, political mediator, and an author, as we mentioned. He was one of the first certified mediators in the state of Florida. Successfully helped to resolve more than 5,000 cases, as he mentioned earlier. And is that includes the 2000 presidential election? You were part of that as well?
Yeah, I was doing my Forrest Gump imitation. I was in the background. I worked at the courthouse at that time, and we had Dangling Chad, and we had Jesse Jackson, and other political luminaries come in and make speeches, and then everybody would run for a phone to do their reports.
Oh, yeah, so I think I remember.
I was right in the middle of it for 28 days.
And I think I remember hearing about you. You stepped on Jesse Jackson's shoes. You stepped on his feet.
Well, yeah, he stepped off the stage after a speech, and I backed up, and I accidentally stepped on his foot.
And that made the news.
Yeah.
And I said, "Sorry, Jesse," and he turned to me, and he was like 10 inches away, and he called me a cracker.
Ah! Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. All right. I remember that in the news. I remember hearing about that. Okay. I don't remember the cracker part. I just remember...
Well, I didn't mention it in the news.
Good for you.
All right, let me take a couple of calls here. By the way, if you want to call, Mark has said it's okay. The number is 622-9622. That is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline. And the phone number is sponsored, Mark. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. You're on the air with Mark Becker.
Yes?
Yeah, go ahead. Good morning.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Are you glad it was Jesse Jackson instead of Louis Farrakhan?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
stepped on Louis Farrakhan's shoes.
Oh, did you step? Oh, Jesse Jackson stepped on Louis Farrakhan's shoes.
Oh.
Did that happen too?
It didn't happen in my presence.
Okay. Maybe figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so the books that you've written, some of them are novels and some of them are not. Is that right?
Well, I'm writing a nonfiction advice book called How to Survive Your Divorce and Get On with Your Life, but I'm not done with it. All of my fiction writing is in the Max Masterson series, and there will be 12 of them before I'm done. And I'm almost done with book 3.
Oh, okay. Can a mediator get together with a judge, let's say in a family, in a divorce case, and say to the judge, look, we're not coming to any conclusions. We need to force them to abide by something. Does that ever happen?
No, that's not mediation. The end result of a mediation is an agreement of some type, or I report to the court that they weren't able to reach an agreement. Okay. And then they go see the judge.
Okay. And then does the judge sometimes force, look, you got the kids, you don't. You get the house, you don't. Does that ever happen where they just have to abide by the ruling?
Well, I can't say the judges have never done that, but judges are very wise in waiting until all the evidence is presented before they reach an opinion about the case. But there are some cases where the judge takes the parties aside and says, you're not going to like what I am about to do, so I just go in that room and try to work it out so I don't have to.
And that's really excellent that you're there as a mediator, because emotions really run high between the parties involved when they're fighting for their own self.
Yeah, it's most of the time it's not life and death, and if I can get them to laugh about their situation, I can usually resolve their case.
Wow.
You had lunch with Jeb Bush during September 11th, which means you were with the governor one day before we were, because we were with Governor Bush on September 12th, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
So we have a Forrest Gump moment there too.
Well, actually, I wasn't sitting at the same table with the governor. He had his back to me, and I had my back to him. And then all of a sudden, they got a message on the radio, and everybody got up at once. And I stood up, and I almost got jumped by his security detail.
Oh, gee. Because of the abruptness of standing up. Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, and then they all ran toward the Capitol. I was only a block from the Capitol at the time it happened, and then we had flybys of F-18s and people jumping out of holes with submachine guns. And
wow.
I was watching 9/11 on the TV on the 4th floor of the courthouse at the time, and nobody knew what was going to happen next. It was a very scary time.
So there were guys with machine guns. We were there for something so superficial. We were delivering a portrait. Yeah. So we had we probably had machine gun guys in closets.
Yeah.
We didn't see him.
Look at the frame.
We didn't see him. That was some time in our history. Well, we're kind of all over the map here. I want to make sure that we can focus a little bit on something. What is your advice about somebody who's thinking about going outside the legal system or outside the law, is what it says in my notes here?
Well, my advice is don't.
Don't do it. Simple as that.
Well, there are so many ways to resolve any dispute that you're wasting your time and your money, and your aggravation level it's going to occupy your mind for a real long time if you try to represent yourself in court. And after I withdrew as Dr. Frash's attorney, he represented himself in court for 2 years, and he represented himself at the trial of the second case, and he did a horrible job. He thinks he did a great job, but the judge disagreed with him.
You know, we have a legal show here. In fact, the attorney that does the show will be here at 10:30 doing the show, and every once in a while, I will observe him shift into defense mode, and the skill of an experienced attorney really does show when you guys step into those shoes where and you are praying to God if you're in court that you have an attorney who knows how to become in defense mode. It's an amazing thing to kind of pay attention to.
Don't try to convince me of anything when I'm in cross-examination mode, because attorneys are trained to just switch it.
So when you're
side of the case.
Is writing relaxing for you? And I'm guessing you draw from your career when you're writing your fiction.
Yeah, somebody asked me yesterday whether I was going to switch from political thrillers to legal thrillers, and I said, no, it's my escape. I start writing at 5 o'clock in the morning, usually, and I write until the sun comes up, and then I go on to my work day, and it's my escape from all the realities that I have to deal with all day. And I chose political thrillers over legal thrillers because John Grisham has that locked up.
Oh, yeah. In your opinion, sir, I have noticed over the years that whether it's divorce cases, child custody cases, things of that nature, that the woman always seems to be sided with first, and it takes the man so long to convince the judge and or the jury that he is the good guy in this and that the woman should be the one that's held at fault. Is that still happening now, or have we overcome that where we treat each gender as a person and not as a gender?
Well, everybody thinks that this doctor that I represented is a monster, but I got him custody of one of his children on a temporary basis. I got him possession of his home again. And in the third divorce, it's my understanding that for a while he had temporary custody of the two young children, which are 2 years old and 11 or 10 months old, and they're both girls. All three of them are girls. So, the assumption that mom's going to get custody doesn't even apply anymore, and we don't even call it custody.
Oh, that's good.
And what do we call it? Possession?
It's the parent with over 50% of the time sharing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I know it's not a good description, but that's the way it is. And we have a lot of law that's pending in the legislature that will probably make it even more favorable for both parents.
Mm-hmm.
What if I had something to do with that change?
I think you did. I think you started it all.
I fought so hard. They were telling me you can't split 7 days in half, and I said, well, can we split 14 days in half? Can we have a 2-day turnaround time? A 2 week. I'll explain it one day.
I call those 4-3-3-4s because it's 4 days with one parent, 3 days with the other, and then it flip flops,
Wow.
and it amounts to 50-50. Sometimes you do week on, week off. And whatever works into somebody's schedule. So
Yeah.
you try to tailor it to your situation.
Unbelievable. Mark, let's sell some books here. Your books are online, I'm guessing, right? Do you have a website so we can look at the books?
Yes, if you go to atriskofwinning.com.
Atriskofwinning.com, okay.
And I have a really interesting website there, and you can order my books online through Amazon.com, and they're readily available. It's a really easy process once you get on the website.
As an attorney, do you need to hire an attorney for intellectual property rights, or do you have that covered?
I think attorneys should if they don't specialize in that area.
Okay. Because obviously you have some intellectual property rights that somebody could steal.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody could make a movie off your book and not tell you or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, I always copyright my stuff. It's a question of whether somebody wants to steal it or not.
Well, you are very insightful, sir, and it's really amazing how you can separate your personal life from your professional life, and that's to be commended.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because after mediating for several years in a 32-year career, I realized one day that I didn't have a dog in that fight. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
I was either going to settle the case or I wasn't, but I wasn't going to assume their burdens because it kept me from settling the case.
Wow. Great interview, by the way.
And it's always nice to tell somebody that, this will be over sometime, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Mark, I love this interview. We went a little bit all over the place, but it's nice getting to know you. The website that Mark gave us is atriskofwinning.com, which is the title of one of his books, and all the other books are on there as well. Go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any other bookseller. Mark E. Becker, you are welcome back anytime. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll take a little break and be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Phoenix Promotional Solutions, your company supplier of banners,